Well, okay, so now we'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to start by saying this meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we are all treaty people. We'll move on to item 3, additions or deletions to the agenda. We don't have any additions or deletions that I'm aware of. Okay, so we'll move on to approval of the agenda. There's a recommendation. The council approve the agenda for July 16th, 2024 meeting as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Councilor Moser, seconded by Councilor Duggan. All those in favor? Move on to approval of the minutes. There's a recommendation that council approve the June 25, 2024 meeting minutes as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Moser. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion carried. There are no presentations, official presentations. Now we're going to move on to the public input and questions section, which we all know basically what the rules are there. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. Each person must state their name. Questions or comments are directed through the chair, and comments or questions are limited to items on today's agenda. So in reading that, we're going to move on to the first speaker, which is Blaine Collins. Thank you so much also for giving us a copy of your presentation.
Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Okay. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, and fellow Lunenburg residents. My name is Blaine Collins. I'm a resident of the town of Luneburg at 267 Pelham Street. I strongly believe that Lunenburg needs affordable housing. I believe we can all work together so that all housing projects in Lunenburg will have a positive impact for the community, but only once the myriad of details are nailed down. I'm not a fan of the BHH development as presented, and I think that developing the HVH or Harborview Haven site is more a viable option. But today I'm speaking about the request for direction regarding the plebiscite and also the request for direction on whether to proceed with a development agreement for the Blockhouse Hill project design. There are some key issues that I would like to highlight and would like council to consider before deciding on how to move forward on these 2 important actions. I think a development agreement is essential, but should be deferred because before drafting one, there are issues that I feel need to be discussed. They are as follows. Housing needs. In areas of possible consideration, the South Shore Open Doors Association updated figure of 130 households that are experiencing homelessness, is cited. The next paragraph talks about the BHH development creating 256 living units. I'm puzzled as housing for the homeless generally falls under social subsidized housing or assisted living, and I don't see any funding references for that in the quantity surveyor's report on BHH. So I would like to clarity on those issues as these 2 statements appear to be conflated. I implore council to be bold and focus on the need for affordable housing and at the very minimum have 25%, preferably 50% affordable housing. The final percentage figure would need to be embedded in the development agreement. Regarding the affordable housing calculation from the BHH report, there are some numbers that need to be clarified in the development agreement. The report seems to be using a median income formula from Stats Canada mixed with the CMCH, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation affordable housing formula to obtain an affordable rental figure that is twice the provincial threshold for towns such as Lunenburg. Other issues that need to be addressed in a development agreement are who will own these affordable units? Is there a housing association being put together to take this on? How will the short-term stay rental purchases be restricted? Moving on to costing, the report states that the developer will be liable for infrastructure costs. It also refers to a restricted development agreement to ensure the developer cannot depart from the agreed design option, but it is unclear on its scope and how and when this will be done. The devil is in the details, so it will be vital that the architect's vision and that of their team is carried through. The Harborview Haven nursing home site. The FAQs make no mention of future strategic planning, taking this adjoining nursing home site into account. As deals have been done, it would make sense to include the existing location of HVH in the BHH plans now, if anything, for infrastructure, capacity, and planning. The BHH plans should be more holistic and consider adjoining land. It will also, is that it?
Yes, your time is up. Sorry about that.
Can I just say thank you for the opportunity to speak to council?
You sure can, and thank you very much. And thank you. I don't think you could speak any faster. So thank you very much. You certainly tried to make it into 3 minutes. So thank you. Next is Allison Strachan.
I just made notes in my phone. Good evening, Allison Strawn. Hi, everybody. Pleasant summer evening. I am going to speak only for the 3 minutes, maybe less, about a hyperlink in it to attachment D under the request for direction heritage impact assessment. And in there it says, apart from some apple trees, no archaeological evidence of agricultural use exists. However, oral histories suggest Blockhouse Hill was known as Apple Tree Hill. And I run this, you're from Lunenburg site, been doing it now for over 10 years. And if I put that on that site, I'd get probably 200 people telling me that Apple Tree Hill is a different street. So again, you're getting it as an oral history, I guess, but it's also contained in Bill Plaskett's book and the public archives. Thank you. Since I do have a few seconds, I asked last week about the bandstand and I thought we were going to get a response about it soon. So speaking of heritage.
Actually, staff is working on RFPs as we speak on the bandstand. So the bandstand isn't a forgotten matter. Once we have RFPs gone out and we know the actual cost of the rebuild or restructuring, then we'll let the public know right away. And there is, I think our ultimate goal, we haven't forgotten it. Our ultimate goal would be if we get the RFPs out and in and can get it done to have it ready for, my goal would be next spring. Obviously, I mean, we're talking, it's almost the middle of July, so it's not going to be this season, but for next spring, when everything starts up again, would be my hope. And I think that's what everybody's hoping at this time.
Do I get my time back? No, just kidding. And also I wanted to extend a thank you to council and to your worship for the condolences sent to Wolfville.
Thank you. Next is Senator Moore.
Sorry. So your worship, members of council, I'm Wilfred Moore and I'm the volunteer chair of the Lunenburg School of the Arts at 151 Montague Street. It's my pleasure to advise council and the public that on June 20th, 2024, Bill S-202, an act to amend the Parliament of Canada Act, the Parliamentary Visual Artists Laureate Act, was passed and received royal assent and is now a law of Canada. So we have a poet laureate, and this is the creation of a visual artist laureate for Canada. It will be there will be a committee chaired by the speakers of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. The term will be for 2 years. The submissions will be submitted to the committee chaired by those two speakers. The arts are very general. Most of the visual arts that you can think of. And the term for 2 years, alternating between a person from each of our official languages, as is the poet laureate provision. And so just to give you an idea what the person might be thought to do, produce or cause to be produced artistic creations at the request by the speaker, sponsor artistic events, including art exhibitions, give advice to the parliamentary librarian regarding the collection of the library and acquisitions to enrich the library's cultural holdings, and perform such other duties as may be requested by either speaker or the parliamentary librarian. So this is an important thing. There are over 600,000 people in Canada involved in the visual arts. So this gives them a focal point. And I look forward, with the rich heritage of artistic people we have in our province, I hope we have some good submissions. This idea came to me in April of 2016 by Peter Goff. Peter was an artist in St. Margaret's Bay, and then he moved to Liverpool, and he passed away in 2020. So he didn't get to see his bill get through. So we were the people who helped him get it through. It's truly Peter Goff's legacy. and I wish he was here to enjoy it. So I'll give you a copy of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you're looking for that on the agenda, you're not going to find it. The senator came to us beforehand and he wanted to get the word out to the community, and he felt this was the best way to do it. So we just gave him permission to speak. So thank you very much, Senator Moore. And Jesse Ward.
Hi, good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. I'm speaking today to suggest a revision to the new council meeting submissions and public input policy. Overall, I think this new policy is really good. It's valuable to have a formal process for how council and staff should proceed with requests for public input. But one change that I believe we should make to the policy as it's presented today is that we should not restrict public input at council sessions exclusively to items that are on the agenda. This policy, as it's before us, would formalize something that's been present on our agendas since the April 23rd meeting, when we added the line to every agenda that comments and questions are limited to items on today's agenda. I think that instead of limiting public input to items that are on the agenda, I believe we should trust our residents' discretion for what is worth speaking on publicly, and we can address any potential disrespectful or recklessly disruptive situations on a case-by-case basis. This would include any public input that is almost completely repetitive from previous presentations, if that ever happens. Of course, everyone should have the ability to exercise discretion if something is truly recklessly disruptive. But instead, I would like to see us follow what our neighboring municipality in the district of Lunenburg does for public input at council meetings. In Modal, they allocate 15 minutes at the start of every meeting for whoever wants to speak on any issue they wish. The time gets divided up depending on how many people wish to present, and if council wants, they can allow more time for speakers. It works pretty well for them, and I think we could adopt the same thing over here. There are issues like the electric utility budget, where the budget was presented in July last year, but it's absent today. And I think it would be very reasonable if someone who was expecting that on the agenda wants to show up and ask why it is omitted. It's perfectly reasonable. The average public session of council has been about 90 minutes this year. So if we dedicate a maximum of 15 minutes to people who want to show up and speak their mind on town issues, I believe they're doing it because they want to be heard or they have points that ought to be addressed that simply aren't on the agenda. And we should encourage this in the name of public engagement. Finally, I appreciate that the policy aims to present misuse of council meetings for commercial purposes, which I totally support. I think that we should see how we could extend this principle to any current and future social media accounts representing the town departments, and councilors. While it is important to preserve councilors' rights to freedom of expression on social media, it's also important that these social media accounts do not publish any content that is solely promoting anyone's personal business, as that's a conflict of interest. With respect, it's distressing as someone who lives in town to have to scroll through advertisements for someone's business when you're looking for exclusive updates on things that are happening in town. People who own social media assets representing the town should be accountable to use their platform for the public interest, the same way that we should be protective of time at council meetings from purely commercial interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody that came in after the sheet was taken or that would like to speak? We still have some time. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the agenda. So we'll move on to 8, which is correspondence. And it's basically just there for correspondence. There is a recommendation under correspondence under 8.2. It's for a noise bylaw exemption request for Lunenburg Dock Festival. The recommendation is that council approve a noise bylaw exemption for September 19th, 2024, starting at 11 p.m. until 12 a.m. on September 20th, 2024, to accommodate the Lunenburg Dock Fest 2024 opening night party at the Swicker Wharf building located at 146 Blue Nose Drive, Lunenburg. So that's a recommendation. Is anyone prepared to move that? Okay, it's been moved by just about everybody, but it's moved by Councillor Moser, seconded by Councillor Duggan. Any questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Move on to number 9, which we don't have anything. So now we're on to number 10, which is Blockhouse Hill Design Project Request for Direction. So we'll just, I guess, get the report done. You want to read that, Cory? Move on.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, I'm Hillary Grant, interim CAO. I will present the request for direction on proceeding with the Blockhouse Hill Design Project. Thank you all so much for attending this evening. Before seeking direction, I would like to draw your attention to some new information since this project last went before council. First, the South Shore Open Doors Association's most recent update for June, which was received after this memo was completed, reported 43 individuals experiencing chronic homelessness on the South Shore. The South Shore Open Doors Association completed 576 intakes in June's, including 201 families, 167 seniors, 12 veterans, 13 African Nova Scotians, and 60 Mi'kmaq First Nations or Indigenous person. It appears that there has been little to no sustained improvement in homelessness or housing insecurity on the South Shore throughout this project. Second, a staff heritage impact assessment has been added to the town's website. This is an internal heritage impact assessment prepared for Parks Canada. Parks Canada asked staff to respond to correspondence between the Friends of Blockhouse Hill, Parks Canada, and the World Heritage Center. Heritage review is ongoing, and the report is subject to change based on further research, including public submissions. This brings me to the two items staff seek direction on from council this evening. Would council like to adopt a development agreement to guide potential future development on the lower slopes of Blockhouse Hill? If so, council must empower itself to do so by enabling development agreements with purchasers of town-owned property by amending the town's municipal planning strategy. This amendment is one of the town's approved Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives, so staff will keep working on it regardless of whether council wants to use this tool in this circumstance. This amendment could be used by council in any future land sales to protect and maximize public benefit. It would be at council's sole discretion whether and how to use this power on a case-by-case basis. Development agreements have to go through Planning Advisory Committee review and council approval. This includes a public participation meeting before the Planning Advisory Committee and a public hearing before council. If a developer fails to comply, the municipality can take enforcement actions, which may include issuing orders to comply, imposing fines, or taking other legal action to enforce the agreement. The timeline provided in Appendix B does see a public review of development agreements moving forward in advance of a potential plebiscite. And on that note, would council like to hold a plebiscite related to the Blockhouse Hill design project? If council would like to hold a plebiscite, staff recommend holding it concurrently with the municipal election to save costs. If council would like to have a plebiscite in conjunction with the municipal election, a vote must pass before August 10th. Therefore, if council would like to defer this decision, staff strongly recommends scheduling a special meeting to reconsider it before August 10th. It would, however, be highly unusual for a municipal council to hold a plebiscite on a matter allowed as of right under its own bylaws. Possible timelines, as requested by council, again, are provided in an appendix to the council memo. Please note, though, that these dates are subject to change and that this is the quickest way forward for each path. For example, should council proceed with a development agreement, staff could work towards bringing a vote back before council for September 10th, but it could be held later due to unforeseen circumstances at the staff level or council's direction to extend the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll open it to the floor. So does council have any questions, concerns, comments, direction? Councilor Mosher?
Well, I guess this asks a lot of questions to council. As I read through it, I started to ponder, what avenue might best suit, our needs in that area. A development agreement versus our as of right bill, which you would build under our land use bylaws. And with some of the issues that's been brought up, like with parking and or whatever, probably I'm starting to lean more towards a development agreement. That in that way, we don't upset all our land use bylaws. They still stay in place for the rest of town. And obviously, if someone wants to build beyond those land use bylaws, they can, you know, ask for a development agreement if they want to build in private land, where this is still town land. So I think we have the responsibility to do something there that, you know, has a more holistic picture. And I think, you know, it'll also enable us to, through a development agreement, we can accommodate housing, you know, that will be for like a family of four, a retiree, or a first time homeowner can, you know, afford and sustain long term. So that's, you know, that would be our opportunity to be able to develop something along that line. So the only thing that I would really hold to, that we've put a lot of work and research in, is the Brian McKay Lyons streetscape. I think that is, you know, absolutely a gem, and I don't know where you come up with anything better than that. But as long as we stayed on that sort of skeleton, and then entered into a development agreement that maybe would accommodate the type of housing and neighborhood that we're looking for, I would support that wholeheartedly. And you know what, you know, there's no recommendations here per se that we can move forward tonight, but I'd be happy to move that forward at whatever first opportunity we would have.
Thank you. So you'd give direction into staff to go back and come back with some types of a development agreement, putting in some of the things you've mentioned just now. And at that time, we could decide at that point whether we wanted to proceed or not to proceed into the development agreement process. Is that the way okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Bertels.
Thank you. I do have to agree with Councilor Mosher there. I do like the streetscape. I just don't like the blockiness of all the houses. So I like the idea of more of a community, the cul-de-sac. It sounds a lot more appealing, and I think we could reach out to more groups that way. And I would be in agreement with the development agreement as well.
Thank you. Councilor Halverson, I'm sorry about that. I didn't see you behind Councilor Moser's head. So go ahead there.
I guess we're gonna have to get a bigger TV. So I appreciate Councilor Moser's points, and actually, you know, I've been going round and round on this too with the development agreement versus the by right. I do struggle because we went to great pains to put this municipal planning strategy together that allows people to develop by right, precisely to avoid having to do development agreements for everything that comes up. Now, that being said, Blockhouse Hill is, I would have to say, an exception to, you know, a normal use of a development agreement. This is a large property. A development agreement is a great tool to ensure that, you know, conditions are met throughout the development process, that, you know, the needs and the wants of communities are addressed in a legal way. It does give us recourse if something goes wrong. I had a couple of questions I put through to our interim CAO. If we go through with if we don't go through with a development agreement, can we be assured that we would be afforded the same protections under our land use bylaws that as they currently exist, you know, municipal planning strategy, or what mechanisms would be used to ensure that, you know, our standards and our guidelines are met with a developer if we decide not to go with a development agreement? And then I guess secondly, on the development agreement side of things, we've got a wonderful report, you know, but we're already at council, you're talking about, we don't like this, we don't like that, but we like this. Do we feel that we're at a point that we can build a development agreement around what's been delivered to us by our consultant? So those are my two questions through our CAO, please.
Through the chair, the current land use bylaw does not include provisions around some of the items that have been raised over the course of this project, for example, minimal parking requirements. In order for those types of expectations, street layouts to be legally enforceable, a development agreement would need to be put in place. Otherwise, the work that has gone into the design options to date would be a suggestion rather than a requirement. So the development agreement is what will give it legal teeth. Part of the McKay Lyons Sweet Apples contract is to prepare development rules for consideration. So the next step of the project would then be for staff to receive that draft and to take it before the Planning Advisory Committee, hold a public participation meeting there. The rules would then return, the draft development agreement would then return to council for a public hearing, and then council could choose whether or not to formally adopt it. So this evening, staff is really looking for direction on whether to initiate the process of amending the municipal planning strategy.
So then, just so we're all clear on where we're going, at this point, we have to reopen the MPS and create a new provision to allow development agreements because we eliminated that when we created the MPS. And then simultaneously, I would assume, I guess my next question, while that's happening, staff will be working with McKay Lyons to put these rules together so that once we're down the road and we can allow a development agreement, will those two pieces of work align so that we can keep moving forward on a decent timeline?
Through the chair, under the MGA, you can work on a development agreement and amendments simultaneously. So everything could move through the review process before the Planning Advisory Committee and council simultaneously. Again, there is a timeline in Appendix B that suggests that a development agreement could return to council in September. Again, that is the quickest we anticipate being able to do it, as this could be subject to delays, anything from the consultants needing more time to a staff member falling ill, any list of unforeseen circumstances. But certainly if council authorizes staff to initiate the process to amend the municipal planning strategy, we would look at doing those things concurrently as outlined in the timeline.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Duggan?
My question was answered.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, I guess I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. Number one, I'd have a question more so than a comment, is that if we went back to talk to our consultants, BML, to discuss any type of a development agreement or anything else, do we have that covered under the current contract, or is that going to cost more money? Number one, go ahead.
Apologies. Through the chair, that is covered under the current contract. It would not require any sort of cost adjustment.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing is along the lines of Councillor Mosier and some others here. I mean, I certainly feel that we do need development agreement, or more so than anything else. I think that the things we've heard talked about around the community now, basically since this project started, the few things have been parking requirements. The town most of the community was in an uproar when there was no parking requirements possibly going back there. We saw what kind of an inconvenience it's given to the residents of 10 units up another area of town, and we're talking 253 units here. So I couldn't imagine 253 units with possibly no parking requirements. We don't have transit here. So bottom line is, as much as we wish it wasn't the case, most people that move to Lunenburg or live in Lunenburg are going to have at least one vehicle per family. I think the Canadian average in rural Canada is 1.7 vehicles per family. The other thing is it's talked about immensely in this community is short-term rentals. So within the development agreement, I'd like to see something put in there that limited short-term rentals, because the last thing we want is to go through what we've just went through for the last year and a half, have all the properties back there built and bought and homed by people that live here 4 months of the year. I don't think that was the initial intent of this council or anybody else when this project was set out. Yes, it would increase the tax base no matter who lived there, but I think that ultimately we started this, or this council started this for more reasons than tax base. So, and I do like the streetscape. I'm like Councillor Bertels. I don't like the look of what was put there, but I think those were just things they put there to make it look like what it could possibly look like as a layout. I agree with Councillor Mosier. You put the streetscape in if you're going to develop it, and you can have houses for a 4-person family or others. So, and I think the one thing that we should find out through the consultant when we do the development agreement is the word affordable has been used sort of quite a bit during this project, but then when we saw the numbers, I'm not sure, like one of our presenters here tonight had said, without government funding or assistance, I'm not sure how that project back on that hill is ever going to be affordable. But again, I think that Harborview Haven moving, that's, we've talked about this unofficially, that would be a perfect location to put some type of affordable units or subsidized units in that location. But again, I can't see us moving forward with this until we get some type of development agreement with rules in place and go in that direction. And hearing what I'm hearing from the CAO, if anything happens at all, which seems to be happening lately within staff and other things, I think it's quite unfair, depending on how many people are reoffering an election coming, to be dealing with this, say, in late September, early October. One of the suggestions was we don't want to make this an election issue. Well, if we start dealing with public meetings in late September, early October, if you don't think this is going to become an election issue, then you haven't been living here for the last 18 months. So again, I think if we're going to do this, we want to do it for the right reasons, and we want to do this the right way. So I'd be hesitant on speeding up anything at this point. I think if we're going to do it, we want to do it right, and we want to get development rules in place, and that would be my feeling on the whole thing. So I'd be okay with sending this back to staff to come back with some development rules, but I don't know how we proceed with that. Do we just give you direction, or?
Through the chair. So in the memo, there are 2 options for direction. So for example, council could pass a motion authorizing staff to initiate the process to amend the municipal planning strategy, allowing development agreements with potential purchasers of the lower slopes of Blockhouse Hill. That would then initiate staff starting the review of development rules, a drafted development agreement and municipal planning strategy amendments before the Planning Advisory Committee.
So then at the Planning Advisory Committee, people would be able to come and speak and suggest what they want to see in the development agreement, and we would have an opportunity to add what we want, because quite frankly, here we're all just talking, right?
That is correct.
Councillor Halverson?
I think we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole right now. The question is, do we want to allow development agreements? Full stop. That's the question we're working on right now, because right now they're not allowed in our town. So regardless, I mean, all the points that we're making tonight are valid. We're talking about parking and all those things all have to be addressed, but that's not this motion. This motion is, do we want to allow development agreements? So I think what we should be looking at is a motion to send back to staff to say, yes, get the ball rolling. We want to amend our municipal planning strategy to allow development agreements. As far as the items you mentioned, Mayor Myra, about the short-term rentals, affordable housing, those kind of things. Short-term housing, I mean, we don't want to, I don't think we want to set specific rules for one side of town and not for another. I think we want to, if we're going to address short-term housing, I think that's its own issue. And I think we need to deal with it as such. So I think we need to pull that out of the equation for tonight and just deal with that on its own. As with affordable housing, I mean, when this project was first discussed, we were talking about 10% affordable housing. We've had lots of people ask, well, how's that going to happen? I mean, it's not something the town is going to do. It's going to be something that the developer's going to have to work with Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation to figure out how to do it. When we put it in there as this is what we want as a development rule. And that's something we can build in to a development agreement at a later time, once we can allow development agreements. So I would make the motion tonight. I don't have it in front of me here. Hold on a second if I can find it again. the suggested motion to oh, it's not on that part. Anyway, to allow the development agreements, to get staff working to change the MPS, so we allow the development agreements and then look at these other items at another time.
So Counselor Halverson, you're making the motion to proceed with amending the municipal planning strategy, authorize staff to initiate the process to amend the MPS, allowing development agreements with potential purchase of the lower slopes of Blockhouse Hill. So that's the motion you're moving?
Just going to take 1 second to read it for myself here, Mayor. Yes, proceed with amending the municipal planning strategy, authorize the staff to initiate the process to amend it, and allow development agreements with potential purchasers of lower slopes of Blockhouse Hill. Yes, that's the motion I'm moving forward tonight.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? It's been seconded by Counselor Duggan. Any further questions or discussion? I just want to make a point. I think the reason that some of the comments were made, we knew we weren't going to do anything tonight. I think people were just selling the reasons why they preferred development agreement over right of use type of thing, why we were going that way. So that's why it was brought up. So any more questions, or Counselor Mosier and then Counselor Halverson?
I mean, I think we should put a timeline on this too as well to bring it back to council. And I'd urge staff to be aggressive. I'd sooner see you fail an aggressive date than have a, I'll get it done, I'll guarantee date at this point in time.
Hey, Counselor Halverson.
Yeah, I just want to stress one more time, just so people understand, like we're not approving any development agreement tonight. We're just saying that we're opening up to allow the town to make development agreements, which is something we got rid of. So there will be lots of opportunity all the way along for consultation on parking and on all the architectural things. It's going to go through planning. There'll be all kinds of opportunity for public input all throughout the course of this discussion before any shovels go on the ground at Blockhouse Hill.
Exactly. Great point, Counselor Halverson. Any other questions, discussions? Counselor Mosier.
Just one more with a focus on Blockhouse Hill, because this report does talk a lot specifically about Blockhouse Hill. Will we still work with McKay Lyons, Sweet Apple, yeah, to do that, to proceed to have that going along with us, so that these things, this is like 7 miles of bad road. Like, I mean, if we can do two things at the same time, can we proceed with that as well? And does that require another motion?
Through the chair, that does not require another motion, since council has already passed a motion for staff to work with McKay Lyons on development rules for option 2.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion carried. Okay, so now we're going to move on to new business. Pardon? Okay, yeah, so the next thing is the plebiscite on there. I think the reason the plebiscite question was such a rush because we were hoping to do it with the fall election. But I don't think you can put a plebiscite question on there until you get the development rules, for example, put in place. So I think our presenter, one of our presenters, our first presenter, had a great point that, if we're going to do a plebiscite, we have to have all the rules and all the facts in place. So I don't think we're ready to put this to a plebiscite vote at the next municipal election, which is 3 months away. I'm not saying it won't be or will be a plebiscite held, but I think until you have the actual rules and we know what's going there or possibly could go there, I think a plebiscite is very premature. And I don't think you can put just the question develop or not develop, because you could, possibly kill something that might be very beneficial to the community before it was ever going to possibly go there. So, that's my opinion, but does anyone else want to go down the plebiscite road tonight?
I just want to ask a question for clarification. I may have misheard, but I believe the interim CAO said something to the effect of that a decision towards a plebiscite will have to be made prior to August 10th. Is that correct? So just wondering, with your points are well taken, but would it not be better to, at the very least, put a motion in as a placeholder motion that could potentially be amended down the road, instead of missing the opportunity to hold a plebiscite should the information come before the time of the election?
Hillary, could you answer? Because I think you need the information, what's going to go on the plebiscite, don't you? Sooner rather than later?
Through the chair, that is correct. If council wants to hold a plebiscite in conjunction with the municipal election, a vote must be taken by August 10th. The question must be determined by August 15th. The question also has to be approved through a council motion.
Okay, so hearing those two things, I guess my point was, I think that I'm not saying we shouldn't have a plebiscite. I said all along, I thought the only way to decide this is through plebiscite once we know what's going there. But I don't know if we're going to know what's going there. We certainly won't know by August 10th. And I'm not sure if we'll know by October 19th, to be honest. So Councilor Moser?
No, I absolutely agree. You have to know what you're voting on before you can vote on something. And I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that before the election anyway. So I'm okay with hunting that down the road.
Okay, I think basically it's a pretty good consensus here that this is a pretty big deal for the town moving forward. So a plebiscite, I'm imagining, would cost about the same as an election, obviously. So I think the last by-election was $10,000 or $15,000. So I think we've got enough invested. We'll probably invest more, that if this is that important to the community, if this community has to spend another $10,000 or $15,000 to get it right, that's what we'll have to do moving forward, if that's the way that the council decides to go at that time. So I think we can all agree in friendly agreement that we're just going to move forward on the plebiscite at this point. Not do the plebiscite. Yeah, just move forward away from the, yeah. Okay, everyone good? Geez, I tried to slip one by you there. Oh, no. Okay, so there's nothing else under that item. So we'll move on to 11.1, the Lunenburg Academy roof upgrade, RFP. Tyson?
Thank you, Your Worship. This report concerns the Lunenburg Academy roof upgrades, the RFP award. So the recommendation from staff is that council award the Lunenburg Academy roof upgrades RFP to Fishburne Sheridan Atlantic Incorporated for the total amount of $109,238 plus HST, pending receipt of $54,619 plus the tax from the Lunenburg Academy Foundation, which is a cost share there at 50-50. The alternative would be to defer the work to a later time. So some background, the project is intended to assess the condition of and prepare drawings and tender documents for the roof upgrades at the Lunenburg Academy. Currently, the roof leaks in numerous locations and several roofing systems require upgrades to stop ongoing water damage the building's experiencing and ensure its long-term structural integrity. The scope covered by the RFP includes preliminary investigations, design, tender document preparation, and QA work during the construction. The amount approved in the 24-25 town capital budget for the Lunenburg Academy roof repairs, the contribution from the town is $75,000, including the net HST. So the RFP for the engineering and tender development closed on May 17th this year and has a validity period of 90 days. 3 different proposals were received. When they were reviewed, 2 of the proposals were considered inadequate for the scope and were eliminated at that time. The 3rd bid was from Fishburne Sheridan Atlantic at a cost of $109,238 plus the tax, with staff having negotiated the initial submission they made down to make sure it fit the scope that we needed, but also minimize the cost. Fishburne Sheridan Atlantic has extensive experience in the building envelope and structural integrity analysis, particularly in heritage buildings, and makes them a good candidate for the work we foresee. Their work will include on-site reviews, detailed visual assessments, testing, and the preparation of the comprehensive specifications and drawings for the tendering purposes and best fits what the building needs. The town is working with the Lunenburg Academy Foundation on a funding agreement, and at the time of this report, the discussions were ongoing. And maybe Hillary, you can provide an update on the status of that.
Hillary?
Through the chair, the Lunenburg Academy Foundation has been very generous in the ongoing discussions. Again, those are still contract negotiations that are ongoing. However, both groups share a deep interest in ensuring the Academy's conservation.
Thank you.
So that concludes the report, but if there are any questions, either myself or Lisa or Hillary should be able to address those.
Any questions from council? Councilor Moser?
Well, I guess the question is not less than probably 5 years ago, we completed a complete restoration on this building, and the roof was addressed at that particular time. And here we are 5 years later with problems with the roof, and we're asking for $100,000 job here just for someone to tell us how to fix the roof. So I'd like to understand how we got here.
Would someone on staff like to answer that question? Because Lisa?
Yeah, so looking back at old council memos and seeing the current condition, there's rolled roofing in a lot of sections that were actually taken out of the contract during that full restoration of 5+ years ago. So the worst spots actually were not restored.
So we saved pennies to spend dollars later, right? I mean, even this we could have put $100,000 worth of repairs in it at the time. And I'm not pointing the finger. I don't know who, you probably weren't even here at the time, Lisa. So, this is not a personal attack on staff, but it's just the council who I sat on at the time is just as responsible for this as anyone else. But it just seems to be an ongoing issue with that building. I do respect that building. I was in total support of the restoration at the time. I was with the strategy though of hopefully finding another suitor to own that building and carry on the ongoing maintenance and restoration of it. I'm almost at the point now where I just like to call Parks Canada and say, here are the keys to your national historic site. And that's not unlike the province did to us when they were finished using it at a school. They just handed us back the keys and said, here you go. It's not unlike the Heritage Society handing us back the bandstand after they find out it needs hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of repairs. And it's not even unlike the Academy Foundation itself, who refused to take over ownership in the long-term repair and maintenance of the building. And I think that's what the residents of the town of Luneburg should say as well. Now, I have a great deal of respect for the foundation and the work they do. And I think they would make a much more suitable partner with Parks Canada, who have a deeper budget than we have here in the town. We have critical infrastructure here that is, ready to collapse at any time. And here we just continue and continue and continue. At least some of that critical infrastructure we can fix and it'll last for 50 years, where this building seems to just keep coming back at us every 5 with hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. So I'm just at the point where I can't support putting any more public money, taxpayer money into the building.
Thank you. Any other questions around the table? Councillor Halverson?
Well, I will say I do share Councillor Moser's frustrations. However, we do own the building right now. Our library is there. We have tenants, we have LAMP, we have the preschool program. You know, we have a responsibility to make sure that that building is intact. You know, I agree, $100,000 is a lot of money, but it's not gonna be near close to what it's gonna cost to repair the roof. And we have to find money for that too. So yes, I share your frustration, Councilor Mosier, and but I do feel like we don't have a choice. We own the building. We're the landlords right now. We have to maintain it. That said, I have another question. What I don't see on here in this scope of work is when we expect, sorry, the first 2 weeks of September, right? Oh, no, sorry, wrong thing. I don't see on this when we expect to get this work or this assessment complete and how long it until we'd have to actually start making the repairs. So does anyone have an idea on that timeline when this assessment will be complete and when we could start repairs?
Lisa?
So the proposed schedule that Fishburne Sheridan gave us was to, of course, start working on it as soon as possible with a tender ready package to go for winter out to tender. And then therefore, if everything follows suit, it'd be construction early spring of 2025.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So has there been any thought at this point to, again, to Councilor Mosher's point about maybe talking to Parks Canada, the feds, the province, anyone about helping to chip in on some money? What grants are available? And do we have some partners who are willing to help defray the costs? Because this is going to be a large expenditure that, you know, we've got a lot of large expenditures in this town. So we're going to be sinking a lot of money into this. So just want to know where we're getting that money from. Do we have a partner who's going to help us out?
Through the chair, while no funding has been secured for a restoration of the roof, I know that there are many committed individuals in this community, again, including a foundation that is dedicated to the conservation of the building, that I have no doubt would be very interested in ensuring positive relationship with funders on an ongoing basis. And certainly whenever a capital project is brought to the council table and approved in the budget, staff always support the option of seeking funding partnerships to make the project happen while minimizing the burden on taxpayers.
Yeah, I guess my point or my question was, do we know of any funding at this point that might be available through any resources, whether it's provincial, federal, or, you know, other private enterprise grants that could help support this restoration?
Through the chair, at the moment, we are aware of the Parks Canada federal cost sharing program for National Historic Sites. That looks like the most promising avenue for funding at this time.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Bertels.
Thank you. I do echo Councilor Mosher's points. My question is, though, when he says, how did we get here? How did we get here? And the construction company that did the restoration let that go. And why are we not going back to that company saying you didn't complete the work and now we need thousands of dollars done? Why are we owning all of this?
Can staff answer that? Did they not do something, or was it taken out of the original? It was taken out of the original tender.
Yeah, and that's our understanding from reading the old memos and reports that we have in our files.
Thank you. And I guess what concerns me about the whole thing is that we put $300,000 in the budget to actually fix the roof, which is the way things always seem to work. And now in the world we live, we're going to spend $110,000. So more than 33% of the cost of the original quote or thought to be quote of the project to just tell us what it's going to cost to fix the roof. So to me, that $110,000 would be better spent if we could just put it into fixing the roof in the first place, if we had the capabilities of telling us how to fix it, but obviously we don't. We need those consultants. And I guess that's what really disturbs me with a lot of projects that every government seems to do. I mean, we'll probably spend $50,000 to $100,000 to tell us how to fix the bandstand. It's going to cost $200,000 to fix. So I know that to me is what confuses me and makes it frustrating, quite frankly, but that's the process we follow. But the way I understand is we budgeted 75,000 for this year. So this is 55 out of that 75, because obviously the actual construction or reconstruction of the roof or the fixing of the roof would be in next year's budget, the way it's looking. So then it would give us lots of time once we find out what the actual cost is going to be, because I'm willing to bet quite a bit of money. It's going to be more than $300,000 for us to go out and apply for whatever funding avenues are out there. Am I correct?
Through the chair, to the chair, you are correct about those timelines that, as Lisa Kendall explained, we would then be able to consider how, whether, and when to proceed with work through the next budget cycle.
Okay, thank you. So then if someone moves this recommendation, we don't need any more money. We actually have more than that in the budget, so we could proceed once we get confirmation from the academy, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. So I guess the next step in the process is there's a recommendation here before us. Is anyone willing to move the recommendation in for us that council award the Luneburg Academy roof upgrades request for proposals to Fishburne Sheridan Atlantic Inc. for the total amount of $109,238 plus HST, pending receipt of $54,619 plus HST from the Luneburg Academy Foundation? Is there somebody willing? It's been moved by the deputy mayor. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder by Councillor Halverson? Any more discussion on the motion? Councillor Mosier.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is sometimes in order to solve a problem, you have to create one. And I think if we keep upholding, and keep chasing these little repairs or these huge repairs, or we're never going to get to offload that building to the rightful owner, which is the federal government. So I think the headline should read, town of 2,300 people can no longer support, a National Historic Site. And we stop putting that money into the building and force their hand to take the ownership of the building and have it in the proper hands.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Halverson.
Like we're on a loop here, but I don't disagree. I think the proper person to own this, proper group to own this is the federal government as a historic site. But in the meantime, we do have tenants in there, and it's a functional, vibrant part of our community, and we can't have the building falling down on tenants. We can still have the conversations with Parks Canada to say we don't have the money going forward. We won't be doing anything else, but we've got a bunch of kids in there all day in daycare. We've got a library. We've got lamp. We've got other tenants. So at this point, we're the landlord and we have responsibilities. So we got to fix the roof.
Can I ask staff, if we approve this motion, can we also proceed immediately after this motion to contact Parks Canada with the situation we seem to be in and basically tell them that, this rubber's hit the road. This is basically it. We're going to fix the roof because we have to, because it's actually physically leaking. But upcoming in the future with any more capital projects, we're done. Can we do it sort of two things at one time?
Through the chair, yes. Though I would humbly request that council pass a motion to that effect.
So let's deal with this motion. I think we have some stuff moving forward to deal with the academy, but I think this is the most important motion at this time. And then we can discuss options B, C, or D in future, but we have to get this RFP motion if we're going to proceed past tonight or not passed. So there is a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Is everybody ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion was just to approve the recommendation in front of us, raise your right hand. It's 3 voting for. Deputy Mayor, myself, and Councillor Halverson. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Councillors Duggan, Councillors Mosher, Councillor Bertles voting in the negative. So the motion basically dies on the floor. Yeah, the motion dies on the floor. It's defeated. So yes, defeated. So we don't reward the RFP. So may I ask staff what our next steps would be, or we just don't have a next step at this point?
Through the chair, without a motion of council, staff would be unable to award this RFP. And it is set to expire before the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Okay, well, the motion has been made and defeated, so we can move on to item 11.2 at this time on the agenda. So 11.2 is not at this point at the meeting. It's not a public presentation, unfortunately, unless council wishes to allow public to speak. That's our choice as councilors. But I'd ask council, are you okay if a representative or not? Are we allowed to allow someone to speak on something? Okay, we'll call a quick recess so we know exactly what we can and can't do. I know we used to be allowed to let people speak if council agreed. We're going to find out if we can or can't at this point because the MGA has changed a dozen times. So. Okay, well then we can. So that's up to council. We need a motion. Yeah, we need a motion from a councilor to allow the chair, I guess, of Lunenburg Academy Foundation to speak if we so wish. Is there a motion from the table? So moved by Councillor Duggan. Is there seconded by Councillor Mosher? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. So Rachel, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Bailey. I am the president of the Lunenburg Academy Foundation, and I do thank council very much for this opportunity to speak. We had requested an opportunity to speak and to be formally included on the agenda, but through a meeting earlier, what are we, Tuesday last week, we didn't think that was necessary. So I do appreciate this opportunity. I'm really a little unsure of where to begin. This work is done as was initiated by the town staff with the understanding that the work was urgent. It was work that was identified by town staff as a priority to protect the integrity of the building. By not going ahead with this project or with the approval this evening, which has been budgeted for by this council since January of this year, when you approved your capital budget for $75,000. I think you're doing a great disservice to the community, to the tenants, as Councillor Halverson said, to the reputation, honestly, of this town as a heritage town and a community that respects heritage and that takes care of heritage, because it has been our identity for as long as I can remember, and I've lived here all my life, and that now is 62 years. So the one thing I would mention that in addition to the fact that the money is already budgeted, and so you are obstructing a necessary work to protect a heritage building by not passing this motion that was recommended, you are leaving money on the table that through you as the representatives of the citizens of the community have approved. And so you're going against what you had approved doing months and months ago. But also, I think it bears mentioning that the Academy, as Councillor Halverson said again, and I didn't think I'd be quoting Councillor Halverson this evening, frankly. So was that it is a very vibrant building, and it does contribute greatly to the community, and you're not recognizing that, but also the fact that the operating expenses for that building were less than the revenue. So you have generated revenue to the good for that building in the past fiscal year, and you know, to the point of it being a burden, it's making you money right now, Councillor Mosier. So it shouldn't be done, or that this decision shouldn't be one that's based on fiscal detriment to the community, because it's not realistic. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any about the building.
Are there any questions through Rachel? Any questions from the floor? The table, I should say. Anybody? Councillor Mosier, and then Councillor Halverson.
Thank you, worship, through your worship, and thanks, Rachel, for coming forward. I really wanted to hear what you had to say. I think my biggest concern is that it's not the RFP. That you're right, it's budgeted, and we could, you know, that money set aside for that project. What scares me though is what we're going to find out from that RFP, and that's the part that I don't think that we as a town of 2,300 people can afford. So it's almost like, for me, chasing good money after bad. And I mean, just it's time to, you know, draw a line in the sand and say, you know, can we actually have Parks Canada take this building over for us? And I think the Academy Foundation will be wonderful partners for them. You've already offered to the town to, you know, be kind of like the administrator for the building. I think you guys would do a wonderful job there. The only trouble is the town of Self, the municipality, hasn't got the funds to sustain the ongoing maintenance of that building, just like the foundation didn't have, right? So that's my biggest concern. So, you know, in order to show, you know, the federal government that we're serious about this, I think now's the time to take the stand. We will still have time if, you know, if push comes to shove, to do the work that's necessary, you know, to sustain the building.
Councillor Halverson.
I'm sorry, did Rachel want to answer Councillor Mosher? It sounded like
well, I'm not sure what there was a question wrapped up in that that commentary, but I do want to address a couple of things that you mentioned. The fact that the building has, you know, I'm well aware of what the town can and cannot support. You know, I sat at this table for 12 years, and during the time when the greatest deal of expense was incurred in restoring that building. Now is not the time to provide ultimatums to Parks Canada, and ultimatums are not a practical nor productive way to negotiate with future partners, in my experience. And I think that was realized most recently when the most recent application for the building was to Parks Canada. The most recent applications to Parks Canada from the town suggest it's just that kind of ultimatum. So that's already been put out there, and it came back with a rejection of funding for the building at this point, at a time when we have been successful at every request up to the most recent from Parks Canada. So they have been a willing and very generous donor to the building all along. And we certainly believe that we can get back to that partnership with them in the near future.
Thank you. Councillor Halverson.
Yeah, I mean, the motion's done at this point, but my concern is, you know, if you want to make a statement to Parks Canada about the ongoing costs, now we don't know what it's going to cost to repair the roof. You know, we could have said, okay, we've done an assessment. We have an actual engineering company come in, do the assessment. Here's our RFP completed. It's going to cost X amount, whether that's 500,000 or $5 million to do the roof. You know, and we could have taken that and said, okay, here's our upcoming capital budget. This is where it fits in that, and you know, we're at our limit. I mean, with respect, Rachel, I know you sat on council for 12 years. You know, we're looking at budgets this year and expenses that just the building that everyone's sitting in right now. It started out about $2 million to work on the exterior replacement, and I've watched that number exponentially grow over the last 2 years as we find more and more work needs to be done on town hall. So, and that's one building, one of our buildings. So we need more help, and we don't have the tax base to keep funding everything in the town, and we need help. We need help from Parks Canada to do that. And I agree with you, Rachel. I don't think ultimatums are the way forward. I think what we need to do is get them online, and you know, reasonable people, show them this is what it costs. These are our annual expenses. You know, here's an unexpected cost. A roof leak that we thought was taken care of 5 years ago, but wasn't. You know, it's now costing the town millions on a budget of, you know, whatever, $20 million. I mean, that's we can't afford it. Anyway, I think we're missing an opportunity here to actually to demonstrate the need to Parks Canada. I think we may, you know, we could have shown a bottom line, and we just didn't.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. There are fantastic points being brought on all parts, and to many I don't disagree. However, there's still water coming into the roof of the academy. Yes, there's still significant water coming in through this building. Major part of the reason why I suggested we get a municipal archive set up, because our own town heritage and history is literally being washed away. But that still doesn't, at the end of the day, dispute the fact that there is still water coming in. And I think that this council would be doing an incredible disservice if we continue to allow that to happen in any case. So I would personally like to see this motion brought forward again. And I would also like to, if we do, potentially tack onto it that we reopen again the opportunity of it at least looking at a partnership with the Lunenburg Academy Foundation, where they can seek fundraising that we as a municipal unit are not able to. And maybe for the short term, yes, in the long term, we can open this up to Parks Canada or different organizations that may want to get involved. But we still need to deal with something right now. So I don't know if it's possible, if the motion's passed, if it's done, if we can bring it up again. But I think, but potentially, I'm looking to Ms. Bailey, if it's possible that we could also look at working together on this one, because I feel we're working apart right now. We have the Academy Foundation on one side, we have the Town of Luneburg on the other. Let's bring that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And if I may add, the LAF did want to present tonight, but we had a meeting last Tuesday, and Deputy Mayor and I and the CEO met with some of the Academy Foundation people. And quite frankly, the Deputy Mayor and I basically thought that meeting went very well, and we thought that this money was already budgeted for. So we just said this won't be the issue. The issue might be when the RFP comes back, we might have to have an issue, right? So in fairness, LAF wanted to present. We felt basically didn't have to at that time. I didn't feel, and the Deputy Mayor didn't feel, based on the fact that the roof was leaking, this would be the hill. I shouldn't use that term, but this would be the hill we were going to take a stand on. So again, I guess like the Deputy Mayor, I'll ask staff, how can we go back and reconsider that motion if we want to?
Through the chair, I would refer that question to the clerk.
Yes, so we do have the opportunity to put forward a motion to reconsider the motion. The only caveat there would have to be someone from the prevailing side, so the winning side, to put forward that motion. And then it would have to be done at tonight's meeting before we adjourn. Through that motion, you could either reconsider it this evening or give notice that the motion will be reconsidered at a future meeting, meaning that the decision would be paused and no further action would move forward.
Thank you so much for that very clear explanation. I would point out, of course, that this RFP is scheduled to expire. Hence, if a decision to defer were to be made tonight, I would strongly recommend that we also schedule a special meeting before the RFP were to expire, if we wanted to defer and keep the opportunity open to reconsider awarding.
Or could reconsider tonight, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, Councillor Mosier.
Well, I would suggest that the motion would stand. However, I would also suggest that maybe the foundation could follow through and bring the funds forward for that RFP. And I'd be happily to be told you were wrong if I were, and when the costs come back and it's something that's affordable, that's no problem. I've been wrong before, but I just, again, my view is that we're chasing good money after bad here from the Town of Luneburg taxpayers' perspective. And if that work is that important, I think the Academy should fund it, and then through the town, and then we can really see what the damage is there, and whether we can use that as a tool to go forward with with Parks Canada.
Okay, so who it has to be Councillor Mosier, Councillor Bertels, or Councillor Duggan to reconsider the motion?
Yes. It would have to be one of them to move the motion.
Okay, so is any one of those three willing to reconsider the motion at this time? Councillor Duggan.
I would like to defer the motion at this time. So go back to what we were originally discussing, but defer and have a separate meeting so that we have more time to think about this.
So just to clarify, Councillor Duggan, are you looking to put forward to reconsider the motion? And then
Yes,
instead
reconsider the motion.
And then instead of making
Instead
a
of
new
making the
decision
decision at
tonight
this
based on
time,
that, it'll be
defer
deferred
right
to-
now and have a meeting before the closing date for the RFP.
Okay, so it's been a motion made to reconsider the motion and defer it to a special meeting in early August. Is that what I'm reading or hearing?
Through the chair, I recommend that you do not specify a date for the special meeting at this time. Staff will ensure that it is held before the RFP expires.
Okay, so it's been a motion made to reconsider the motion to move it to a future date. Councillor Halverson, first, is it going to be seconded? We need a seconder first before we, seconded by Councillor Bertels. Now, Councillor Halverson.
The question I had is what is Councillor Duggan, what additional information is Councillor Duggan looking to get by delaying and waiting to reconsider the motion? Through the chair.
Councillor Duggan.
I would like to have the Academy Foundation potentially consider putting more money forward to reduce the burden of the cost on the town. Not the full amount, but I think that there's more discussion that can be had. And for that reason, we would need more time to consult with them and bring this back.
Councillor Halverson.
I just worry that, again, to reiterate with what Rachel was saying, I just feel like this is, I mean, I'll say it, I just feel like we're dealing in bad faith here. We had an agreement with the Academy Foundation to cost share this project. We set the budget. In January, we agreed on the budget. We all voted for the budget. This money was included. It's, what is it, $60,000 or so that the town is responsible for, give or take. Yes, that's a lot of money, but we have a leaky roof on a building we own. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, if we're going to start making these plans to work with partners and then backing out, after we've already set money aside and then at the last minute pull the rug out from under people. I don't know. That doesn't do well for the reputation of the town as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Halverson. I guess I totally echo Councillor Halverson's comments. We had a meeting again, I'll reiterate, last Tuesday with very good, positive meeting I felt with the Academy Foundation that we were going to move in a direction to start working more and more together. And the Academy Foundation was offering to take over more responsibility of things. So to me personally, I think the results tonight of this vote is really a mistake by us at this time. But again, I only chair the meetings and have one vote. So I'd love us to reconsider and move forward at this time with the motion that's in front of us. I'm not sure what deferring it by 2 weeks is going to do because we know the Academy Foundation stance. We know our stance. I don't know what's going to change in 2 weeks' time. I really don't. So, either way, we have to make a decision, right or wrong. So I guess the motion to reconsider the motion and defer it to a later date is on the floor right now. We can vote on that, or we can move forward with another motion. But I think Councillor Mosier wanted to speak again. So Councillor Mosier.
Well, just one more point to the budget item. That $75,000 that we have budgeted was for the roof repair, not for an RFP. So we were looking, I think, at the time for about $140,000 repair to the roof. And now we're looking at $100,000 RFP to tell us how to fix the roof.
Any other comments?
May I
Yes,
speak
Rachel.
to that point? That's not incorrect, Councillor Mosier. But those figures back in January were guesstimates at best, and they were thought to be generous at the time. We were all, I think, a bit surprised at what this RFP came in at. So we have to deal with what we have at hand. And so we were gobsmacked, frankly, that our foundation money and the money that donors had contributed in good faith to fixing a roof were also going to preliminary work. But as was mentioned before, this preliminary work is very valuable and is absolutely essential to determining what actually we are dealing with. And it holds the key to other avenues of funding. And it also, miracles happen, and it could be a much cheaper fix than originally envisioned. There has been work done over the course of time on 2 different occasions back in 2013, which I'm not sure if town staff are fully up to speed on, as well as during the restoration work. So that work has to be reviewed. There may be deficiencies that there are other avenues through which they can be repaired. They may be smaller fixes that require a much smaller capital outlay than we're anticipating at this point. But without that work, we're really, our hands are tied. Foundation can't go ahead with a project that is a tender of the town on its own. So I would expect as a taxpayer that my money would go to a project that's already been assigned by council to be paid for.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We have a motion. Oh, Councillor Halverson.
Just one last thing is that, here we are. I know we're arguing about $100,000 plus that cost shared, so $60,000, back to Councillor Mosier's point about, 5 years ago, pennies down to dollars. Right now we could be arguing about pennies and it could later on turn into big dollars. So we address it now, we have less of a problem to fix. If we don't address it now, we're going to have a huge problem to fix. And, yes, I agree with you. I would like to see Parks Canada take over. But in the meantime, we still have to be responsible to the tenants. We own a building. If you were renting if you're renting a room in your house and your tenant's roof was leaking, you'd have to fix it. And it's no different. So I'm just worried about this is going to cost us more in the long run. I would rather just spend this money now, find out what we're going to be charged, have conversations with Parks Canada in the meantime, and just see where we can do to get that funding. Anyway, and what I'm looking for is to see if, potentially we could just make that motion to change. I asked one of the counselors who voted on the positive if they're willing to make that motion tonight.
Counselor Duggan.
I would like to have some assurance that if we were to go through with this, that in looking at the actual cost of the roof repairs in the future, once this RFP is complete, that there would be some level of cost sharing and application for grants and other funding that may be available for that. Through the chair. Conversations with the foundation are ongoing, and the foundation has shown a willingness to partner and pursue these types of avenues. Those types of discussions could continue in the form of contract negotiations. So now that I've put the other motion to defer on the table, do we have to vote on that before we can put a different motion on the table?
So what I have right now is that council reconsidered the decision made at tonight's meeting where council defeated the motion that you had defeated, and that this motion be reconsidered at a meeting in August. So just a point of correction, and that's on me, that I had said it could be decided at a future meeting. Our rules do say that it either has to be dealt with at tonight's meeting or our next meeting, and recognizing we're up against those timelines for the RFP, whether that our next meeting would truly be a special meeting to allow for that. This would have to be dealt with at our next scheduled meeting.
Okay, so can we amend that to then not defer to a later date and reconsider this tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would, it's your motion, and if you're willing to make that motion, then you would make a motion to amend the motion.
Okay.
To remove, sorry.
I
To remove
will, yes, I
Okay.
will make a motion to amend the motion that we previously voted on.
Okay, so it's been moved by Counselor Duggan to reconsider the motion that we made earlier and make a decision tonight. Is there a seconder?
No, at this point, so right now, just to provide a little bit of clarity, we're just making the decision on the motion to amend the motion that's already been moved and seconded.
I'll second.
So, yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. No, he's just voting, I think, aren't you? Are you voting yet, or are you?
Okay, this has gotten very confusing. So what we're voting on the motion to amend the motion is what we're talking about right now. We want to vote on this motion tonight, to amend the motion tonight, right?
Correct. So technically, because Councillor Duggan's original motion to defer reconsidering to the next meeting or a future meeting in August had been moved and seconded, we just need to make sure that we're all accepting of amending that motion.
To deal with it tonight.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. I'm
Okay,
voting
so
for that motion, yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor, raise your right hand. Voted 5-1 with Councilors Bertels, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councilor Duggan, and Councilor Halverson voting in the positive. All those against? Councilor Mosier voting in the negative. So now that we've done that, is there another motion somebody would like to make?
I'll make the motion to reconsider the first motion and bring it back to the table.
No, at this point now, we would just make the motion to go ahead with reconsidering tonight.
A motion to reconsider. Is there a second to reconsider? Been seconded by Councilor Halverson. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed. Councilors Bertles, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councilor Duggan, and Councilor voting in favor, Councilor Mosier voting in the negative. Now, back to the drawing board. 11.1, there's a recommendation in front of you. Is anyone prepared to make that recommendation as presented? Deputy Mayor made the recommendation as presented in front of you. Is there a seconder? Okay, I'll read the recommendation out. That council award the Lunenburg Academy roof upgrades request for proposal to Fishburne Sheridan Atlantic Inc. for the total amount of $109,238 plus HST, pending receipt of $54,619 plus HST from the Lunenburg Academy Foundation. Is anyone prepared to make that motion? It's been moved by Councilor Halverson. Is there a seconder? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Now, if there any more discussion on the motion?
I just have one question. It says pending. We are guaranteed that the foundation is bringing this money forward to us.
Through the chair, while the foundation has indicated its support and intention to supply us with funding, contract negotiations are ongoing, and until paperwork is officially signed, and money is in hand, it would still be considered pending. However, again, dealing in good faith, my understanding is that the foundation has indicated support of a cost sharing. I'm being very careful not to speak out of turn here, as you can tell.
I just don't want this coming back again because now we have to own up more money. And then we're outside of what we budgeted. I'm just making sure I understand this. So I'm voting and people aren't going to blow up my email tonight.
Yeah, it's pending at this point, but I'm pretty sure if the money doesn't come, it just doesn't happen at this point. I'm pretty sure after tonight's discussion that everybody gets the point. So I'm pretty sure, pending, is just pending at this point, but we won't be proceeding until we hear from the Academy Foundation, which might be tomorrow, might be the next day. We don't know. We are in negotiations with them. So there's further information coming on that matter. Okay. So there's been a motion made. Has it been seconded? Councilor Bertles made and seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any more discussion on that motion, which is the recommendation that we had at the beginning? Hearing no other questions. Oh, you can.
Just want to assure that there's no issue with the foundation supporting financially this project moving ahead.
I don't think there's any issue with you folks giving us money. I'm pretty sure we'll be there with our hand out, right? So it's all good there. So thank you. So all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, once again, motion's carried 5-1. Councilor Bertles, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councilor Duggan, and Councilor Halverson voting in the positive, and Councilor Mosier voting in the negative. Motion carried, and we'll move on at this point. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience. So now we'll move on to 11.2, Lunenburg Athletic Facility Fund application from the Lunenburg Tennis Club, and Kathleen to present the report.
The Lunenburg Tennis Club has been fundraising to resurface their 3 tennis courts. The current balance held in reserve for the Lunenburg Athletic Facility Fund is $94,823. The town does not contribute money to this fund. The monies are funded entirely through donations. Donations are issued a charitable donation receipt. The fund is designed for capital expenditures on athletic facilities, excluding operating and equipment costs. The project will resurface all 3 tennis courts with Sportmaster Pro Cushion surface system at a cost of $162,567. There is a motion included for council's consideration.
Thank you. Is there any questions to Kathleen? Okay, seeing no questions. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Okay, so there's a recommendation that council approve the Lunenburg Tennis Club's application to the Lunenburg Athletic Facility Fund for $94,820 to resurface all 3 tennis courts using the Sportmaster Pro Cushion surface system. That is a recommendation. Is anyone prepared to move that at this time? It's moved by Councilor Mosier, seconded by Councilor Duggan. Any discussion or questions from council? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Now we're going to have a quick recess and then we'll move on to the next item.
Hello.
So next item is 11.3, pre-approval and issuance of RFP for number 6 tanker replacement information report. So Kathleen?
In November 2023, the fire chief submitted a letter to the Fire Protection Committee requesting that the fire department develop a request for proposals for the replacement of number 6 tanker. The rationale for the request is that delivery times of a new truck range from 18 to 36 months. Starting the RFP process now could assist in reducing delays in receiving this item. In January 2024, a staff report noted that the capital replacement of this truck would be considered at the 25-26 capital budget sessions, which would start in November 2024. The report also mentioned that if the committee recommends moving forward with an approval outside the 25-26 budget process, a request to council would be required. The June Protective Services Committee did not have a quorum. Therefore, Councillors Halverson and Mosier have requested that council review this request. If council approves issuing the RFP, the earliest it could be issued is June 17th, which is tomorrow. The closing date would be August 16th, 2024. And the prices that we receive would be in effect for 90 days, which would expire November 14th. While the issuance of an RFP does not typically require a council motion, awarding a tender valued at 100,000 plus HST or more does require council approval. Once awarded, the tender commits the town and district to the purchase. Since the item is currently included in the 25-26 capital budget, there is no authorization to proceed with the purchase earlier. Staff therefore would require council's approval to issue the RFP as this item has no approved budget. Council have two options. The outgoing council must pre-approve the 25-26 capital budget item before its last meeting on October 8th. Or if the current council does not approve, the new council, which will not be sworn in until after October 29th, will face a tight timeline to act on the bids and must consider on or before November 14th, because the tender would be closing with only 90 days. And after the 90 days expire, then we would have to start again. If council wants to consider issuing the RFP and pre-approve the number 6 tanker replacement, the following motions are recommended. That council approve issuing the RFP for the number 6 tanker replacement immediately, aiming for the earliest possible release date, and that council approve the number 6 tanker replacement for the 25-26 capital budget in the amount of $798,000, with 50% of the cost to be covered by the Fire District 1 and 2 Commission. Staff are recommending adhering to the standard budget processes by issuing the RFP in September or October, which aligns with the scheduled budget timeline.
Thank you. So there's two recommendations there if we want to do anything at this time. First of all, I think if we're going to make any motions on funding, Councilor Bertels wants to declare a conflict, she told me, so. Okay. So hearing that, there is a report that Kathleen just gave. Also, the fire chief is present if anyone would like to ask him any questions at this time. If not, there are recommendations here in front of us. There's two draft motions. Personally, seeing the timelines and coming in midstream in this council, I think this is something that the town definitely needs in the district. It would be very unfair to a new council at their first meeting to be hit with a $800,000 item that they have to approve like right away, or they'll miss the deadline. So I think this is something that this council sitting here at this table should discuss and decide. So is there any discussion? Councilor Halverson.
Again, as you mentioned, Councilor Mosier and I were on the Protective Services Committee, so we've heard a lot of this information. But I think it would be advantageous, considering the fire chief is here, if we could ask Darren to just explain why why it's important to commit to this purchase at this time, as far as timelines for delivery, cost of the equipment, that kind of thing. I would ask the fire chief just maybe to give us a brief overview on why he feels it's important to move ahead now.
Aaron?
Thank you. As it was stated, trucks nowadays, there's some companies say they can have in 18 months. Some are saying 3 years. The demand with the prices that they are, surprising demand is there. There's a long waiting list. This is what we've done the last 2 trucks. We've asked for pre-approval before the budget year. Like I say, the truck is 22 years old now. It is where we're having a problem. When the trucks get that old, they start breaking down sometimes when you don't want them to. We keep them regularly maintained. We get them regularly maintained every year. But still, I mean, they have low mileage, but they're running hard when there are fires. I mean, the engine is running hard. This tanker, I've spoken to a company that has this type of chassis, the GMCs. He can't get those parts anymore. So if something were to happen to the engine, there's a good chance that truck will be completely out of service and we wouldn't have anything. So yeah, so we're just looking for the okay. It's to go ahead and order it now. And I don't even think we'll be here for the 25-26 budget year. It'll be the next one, but yeah, so that's what we're looking for, just to try to get it on the go.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions to Chief Rumpke? Okay, thank you. Okay, is someone prepared? There's 2 draft motions below there. The first one is a council approve issuing the RFP for the number 6 tanker replacement immediately, aiming for the earliest possible release date. Is someone prepared to move that? Moved by Councillor Mosier, seconded by Councillor Halverson. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. Now there's another draft motion that council pre-approve the number 6 tanker replacement for 25-26 capital budget in the amount of $798,000, with 50% of the cost to be covered by Fire District 1 and 2 Commission. Someone prepared to move that motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Duggan. Any question or concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. So that's it for that item on the agenda. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Chief Rumpke. Next item is 11.4, council meeting submissions and public input policy notice. Kayla to present staff report.
Thank you. So tonight we are presenting the new council meeting submissions and public input policy for your consideration. This policy is being brought forward as a part of our ongoing review of the town's policies and bylaws. This new policy's primary aim is to establish clear and consistent procedures for presentations, public input, and correspondence at council meetings. Our current policy on public presentations lacks clear parameters, including how presentations are reviewed and approved and how we handle requests that might be prohibited or repeated presentation requests. Although we do not receive many of these requests, having a clear policy in place will prevent us from having to come up with ad hoc solutions when these requests do arise. Additionally, while correspondence items are regularly included in the agenda package and the public input section is now a regular staple of council meetings, there is currently no policy guiding how we handle these. This new policy aims to formalize these practices by putting them into writing, making it easier for staff to manage requests by clearly outlining procedures. At the same time, it creates clear and transparent expectations for the public on how they can present their input at council meetings. Some of the highlights from the policy include putting parameters on what kind of items can be presented at council meetings. Under this policy, presentations to council must fall into specific categories, including local and regional updates, community initiatives, significant public interest topics, and celebrating local achievements. Prohibited presentation requests include promotion of private businesses, subjects that do not fall within the town's jurisdiction, matters that require a public hearing, or matters that will have a public hearing, or matters which a public hearing have already been held, and topics that fall within the operational responsibilities of the CAO and staff. These parameters ensure council meetings focus on high-level community matters. Prohibiting presentation requests, for example, on operational topics, keeps council's attention on broader issues and ensures staff handle operational complaints promptly and appropriately. Matters associated with public hearings are not included for presentation requests because public hearings are already a mechanism for public input at a council meeting. Public meetings are the right time and the right place for community input on those specific issues. The proposed policy also provides guidelines for handling correspondence, which have broader parameters than presentations, allowing the public to submit their input on items that may not necessarily be appropriate for a presentation, but can still be a part of the public record included in council's agenda package. This policy also outlines parameters for public hearing submissions and participation, respecting conduct, petitions, and accommodations. Therefore, we recommend that council give notice to approve this new policy, which would repeal our existing presentations policy. I thank you for your attention, and if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions from the table? Councilor Mosier.
Thank you, Worship. I read through this several times, and for the most part, and it's basically pretty straightforward, although there are some areas where I think are, I don't know, sometimes it's good for items to be up for interpretation, and I think sometimes it's not. I think sometimes, like, I think one thing that we're missing here with some of these bylaws and policies that come to council is that on some previous councils that I was on, we used the committee as a whole. And I think that was an opportunity where staff could have that discussion with council on some of these items so that when they did actually come forward, they were a little more, I think, in sync with where, staff and council could both, would agree that this is a little better. So I would suggest maybe that might be a good tool to bring back for council to use committee as a whole. We, and use that for development of these policies and bylaws. I think it's definitely the staff's role to solve problems. I think, the more problems staff can solve before it has to come to council, the better. But I think if that fails, there should be an easy avenue for someone to appeal to council. So, and I don't read that really clearly in this bylaw. So it may be there, and if you could explain that it's there, fine, that I'd be satisfied with that. I think to the 3-minute speaking portion, this council was, we initiated that. I mean, it was pretty casual when we first initiated it. There has been some changes made since we started, I think, because as always, I think, there have been people and groups that have taken advantage of that. And I think some of the things that are put in this bylaw does address that. So I think initially, this was a forum for public to speak to council, to raise, an opinion that might be on the agenda. It might bring, a concern that they may have about their community. It could be something as simple as a pothole in the street or a line item on the budget, right? That's an opportunity for them to come and speak. You can certainly do that within 3 minutes. And it helps council and staff, I think, to address little problems that may arise. And it may be a service that you may want, to see the town initiate. So that truly is what I think that forum is for, personally. And I wish it would be used a little more for that, as opposed to necessarily always speaking out against, an initiative of council. So that's just my thoughts on this. I would like a little more time to digest this before we'd actually pass it, and maybe have that opportunity to talk with staff and have a better explanation of some of the, line by line. We could go through that and drill down and make a few changes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Halverson.
So yeah, I agree with some of what Councilor Mosher was saying there. I think in conversations I've had with people, and it sounds, like just some of the people in the same room, Jesse Ward made a comment about the public input. I mean, back to the presentations, I understand it needs to be a little more rigid because it, if someone's going to present to council, it's a large investment in time and in resources, making sure we have AV set up or materials ready and that it's included in the agenda. So, on the presentation items, I'm pretty comfortable with the way that's set up. But the public input, I do think that we're missing an opportunity to hear from the public on the when it says during this period, the public may only address items scheduled to be discussed at that meeting per the agenda. To Councilor Mosher's points, I think it's a great opportunity to hear from the community. I've actually enjoyed a few of the suggestions that have come forward, just some of the comments. We've had birthday wishes, we've had all kinds of things, and I think that's this is the residents' government. They have they should have every opportunity to speak. I don't think giving people 2 or 3 minutes is too much to ask, and I think it does provide insight to council on issues that we're only 7 councilors and a mayor around the table. We don't see all around the community, so it's nice to get that feedback from the public. So that's the one item when I was going through this that I thought we should change that. I'd like to see that struck from the I guess number 4. But aside from that, I think pretty happy with what we've got here. It was again, credit to Councillor Sanford for putting this initiative forward however many months ago now. I think it's been a good tool. Also, on the public input side, I do think, to Councillor Mosher's point that, we've had people come up and, just every week make this basically the same presentation. And I think that's something that can be managed from the chair. I don't think we need to put rules in place for that one. So, striking the related to the agenda item requirement, I think is fair. That's all I got to say on that.
Thank you. Any other comments around the table? Okay, I have a few to make. I guess under presentations at council meetings, again, much like Councillor Moser, I agree that the CAO and the municipal clerk should be dealing with as much as possible. But I think there should be something added there that if somebody wants to present something to council and they were refused by the CAO and the clerk, that they could basically appeal to the mayor and council, and we ultimately would have the final say who can and can't present in front of us, since it is our meeting. So I'd like to see that put in there somehow. Besides that, the rest of that looks pretty good. Under prohibited presentations, I think 2 things have to be made clear. I think number 1, matters requiring or having had a public hearing. I think that depending on what it is and when it is, and if I think that if somebody wants to bring somebody up, quite frankly, this is their meeting. So if they want to still bring something up in that 3-minute part at the beginning, I think they can bring that up if they didn't like a decision we made. And again, under topics under CAO and staff responsibilities, I think if you're going to put that in there, you better have a clear definition of what that is. And you probably have to update it routinely, because the MGA, every time it changes, seems to slowly be giving more and more responsibility to staff and less responsibility to those of us sitting around the table. So I think that you'll want to put a list of what you actually are responsible for, what you aren't, so the citizens know what falls underneath that. Those are my opinions. Under public input council meetings, I had notes here that basically if we do allow the 20 minutes, if that's what we've allotted at the beginning of every meeting, I think that quite frankly, we maybe put a maximum of 5 minutes or 7 minutes, but if we have 20 minutes allotted for something, I know other municipalities around us allow that. I think it's 15 minutes one, and one is 20. I think they allow the full time slot. So if one person wants to speak and they're the only person that signs up, they can speak for the amount of time that they have allotted in that meeting. So I think, if there's only 2 people speaking and we have a stopwatch on them, I don't really think there's a really need for that. And I do agree. I think that we brought the agenda item thing forward based on what was happening at the time, the environment of the community. But I think that as you've seen over the last 14 months before I was here, when this was started, to now allowing public presentations, allowing public to speak, having more public participation events, I think the meetings have become quite civil, and people bring up most of the time different things. So I think that if somebody like Senator Moore tonight's topic, I think if he wants to come up and speak on something, he should be allowed. That's his really only opportunity. So where else do you get to speak to your council? Also traveling to conferences, that I'm finding out slowly that we're one of the only councils that I've spoken to that doesn't have committee of the whole anymore. And I think committee of the whole is an important part of a council and staff, because you sort of meet early and you get to discuss things and you come back here more on the same page. When I was on council previously, we used to meet every week. Now we meet every 2 weeks. So I think having a committee of the whole doesn't put that much more of a time burden on counselors or the mayor. So I'd like to see this group look at bringing that back. And I don't know if you have one a month or even one every 2 months, but I think committee of the whole meetings are very important. And, you know, the other thing I'd say is, because I've heard a lot of comments around this table and in this room, you're going to hear a lot of stuff brought up at this table that you don't always have to agree with. So you don't have to agree with what the people want to say, but you have to give them the opportunity to be heard. So I think that's very important at this level. And I think, again, I think this council has been doing a very good job lately of listening to people and having public presentations. And yes, we can always approve, but I guess my number one goal as the mayor, and I think this council should be, or any council should be, to make it as easy and more inviting for people to want to come speak and present at a public meeting, not put obstructions in place, not make them feel like they're doing something wrong. And they might say things that you never wanted to hear in your life, but you know what? Go home after the meeting and take a deep breath and move on. But that's what citizens' rights are. They have a right to speak and give their point of view. So I think there are some tweaks that need to be done here. I think that we've now seen this for the first time, like a couple of days ago. I think with some of the things that staff has heard tonight, and maybe it's been sent out in a public document. We have had some public responses that we get staff to review this once again and bring it back at a future meeting, and we review it at that time would be my recommendation, but I can't make a motion, so that's my recommendation. Does anyone want to make a motion to send it back to staff and go back?
Yeah, I think we should do that. And if we could initiate a committee of the whole meeting with staff before it comes back, and there might be several other policies or whatever that they're working on at the time, and we can deal with those as well, right? So I would say, yes, let's send this back. Let's put it in an agenda for the committee of the whole, and any other policies or things, bylaws that the staff may be working on, we can have that discussion. Even if they're not ready, we can start, getting them ready anyway.
Yeah, and for those that you don't know what committee of the whole is, it's just a less formal setting of council meeting with staff. The public, I think, is allowed to attend committee of the whole meetings. They just can't present or participate. So I think that's a great idea for us maybe to sit down with staff. And if there's a handful of things you want to bring up at that time, maybe when we come back to this table, we can all be on the same page a bit more than we have been a few times lately, and go from there. So if that's a motion, it's a motion. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. You have the motion, Kayla? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, Councillor Halverson has something to say. Go ahead, Councillor Halverson.
Questions, yeah. Before we vote on this, we want to have a committee of the whole meeting. First off, a question through our interim CAO. When do you think we could schedule interim a committee of the whole meeting with staff time? I mean, again, we're in the middle of summer here too, which we have to recognize as well. I'm sure there's vacations and all those other things too. So when do you think we could have this? Is it August sometime?
Through the chair, this, as always, this is an unexpected motion. So I would need some time to look at the council and staff schedule before I could give you any sense of a date. Certainly, we would do our best to bring it back quickly. But as you say, I would need some time to go through the calendar.
So would the motion read, I guess looking through the chair to the clerk, the motion would read, we want to send this back to a committee of the whole, schedule at such a time as convenient to it can be found, something like that. Is that how that would read?
Yeah, so as I currently have it written is that council defer this policy to a future committee of the whole meeting for further discussion.
Can we add to that motion I think 11.4 and 11.5 are very similar. I think there's some discussion to be held on 11.5 as well. So I think could we add both of them at this time and come back to committee of the whole? Because as the CAO said, this was an unexpected motion. So the whole idea of the committee of the whole meeting is we don't continue to have unexpected motions. So can we put both of them into one motion?
Yeah, that would, since this has already been moved and seconded, we're now opening up to just amending the motion. However, if you do not want to deal with that process again, you could just do the same motion again for the next upcoming agenda item. So
Okay. We'll just do two motions. It'll be easy. We've amended enough tonight. So Councilor Halverson.
I'm just looking at what, the public statement policy. I mean, that's basically, commemorative flags, proclamations. I mean, do we need to discuss that? I don't think much is changing in there. I'm happy to have the discussion with the public, the engage hearings, or sorry, public, what do you call them there? I'm trying to work on this machine here and I'm failing. Public's council meeting submissions, that's what I'm trying to get to. So the council meeting submissions, I think that should go back to the committee of the whole, but the public statements with flags and things, does anyone feel the need to discuss that? I mean, I'm happy to, but it just doesn't seem like it should go to another item.
I wasn't sure. I just thought that to solve the problem, we just move them both to a committee of the whole meeting, and that way we don't have to sit here and discuss that one again.
Let's find out when we get to it.
Yeah.
So let's vote on this one first. We're gonna move 11.4 to a future committee of the whole meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. Now back to public statements policy. Kayla, you have a presentation there?
yeah, thanks again. So tonight we are presenting the new proposed public statements policy for your consideration. Just a point of clarification that these are here for notice right now. So if council did want to still provide notice on this policy, their motion could be that council provide notice with the following amendments, and then before the policies get officially approved, we would present those amendments for your consideration. So for tonight, the current commemorative flags and proclamations policy cover flag raisings and proclamation requests, but lack guidelines for other public statements, notably letters of support, which are requests we see pretty frequently at the council table. The new policy includes guidelines for proclamations, letters of support, and flag raisings at town facilities. Requests must come from a local nonprofit organization or a town citizen and meet at least one of the following criteria: that the cause must be of local, provincial, national, or international significance, of benefit to the community, or initiative of the town of Luneburg. These specified parameters help manage requests from organizations not affiliated with Lunenburg and prevent endorsing for-profit initiatives. Previously, staff have faced uncertainty in handling such requests. By stating that requests must come from local entities, connect to the community, or be nonprofit initiatives, the policy provides clear guidelines, reducing confusion and ensuring proper use of the town's support. Through the proposed policy, council can support an initiative for multiple years within their term with a single approval. The current policy specified dates for certain flag raisings and proclamations that do not require council's approval. However, within that current policy, without frequent amendments to the policy, it's unclear how this list is updated or how an organization would request being added in the existing policy. The proposed policy addresses this by allowing council to approve annual flag raisings and proclamation requests for their entire term. This approach eliminates the need for repetitive submissions and approvals each year, creating a more efficient process for recurring initiatives without frequent policy amendments. Therefore, if council feels comfortable with this policy, they may consider giving it notice to approve the policy at a future meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss any concerns you might have regarding this.
Thank you, Kayla. Any questions for Kayla? Concerns? Comments? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that council give notice to approve the new public statements policy as presented, repealing and replacing policy number 80, the commemorative flags and proclamations policy. Is anyone wanting to move that? Moved by Councilor Duggan, seconded by Councilor Halverson. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed, motion carried unanimously. So now we'll move on to 11.6. Portable water quality test results, January to March, just information. Tyson, give a staff report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yes, have the potable water quality test results from the first quarter of 2024 to review. So the background, Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change approval documents to operate for the water treatment plant require that certain tests be carried out to verify the quality of the treated potable water the water utility and the town provides to residents and businesses. So the water quality items are covered in our approval for operation of the treatment facility and the approval to withdraw water from Dares Lake. The results from January to March 2024, all weekly, monthly, and quarterly regulatory testing and in-house daily tests complied with the approval requirements. So that includes the parameters of lead, manganese, trihalomethanes, haloacetic acids, turbidity, chlorine residual, total chloroforms, and fecal chloroforms. Moving on to section 2, the raw and treated water flows. The chart on page 3 of the report shows the performance there. January, February, and March are on the right-hand side. You can see we're well under our average rate of withdrawal and our maximum rate of withdrawal dictated by our permits. The average and maximum daily flow of treated water as well is on the following page. Again, the first quarter is on the right-hand side. Again, we're well under the limits for our 30-day average that's dictated by our water withdrawal permit. The 3-day maximum average withdrawal limit did not exceed, and the treated water flow did not exceed the peak production within this quarter. Water main breaks and repairs, nothing to report this quarter. Complaints, we had a couple of complaints from residents where we recommended flushing their service. It could possibly be some debris or some discoloration in the line, but flushing is what we recommend until it clears up. Any questions from council on that report?
Any question for Tyson on 11.6? Okay, 11.7.
Thank you, Worship. Moving on to the wastewater quality results from January to March 2024. Again, Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Control approval documents specify parameters for us to operate the wastewater treatment plant, and we have to perform testing to verify the quality. Section 1 of the report covers the parameters for the provincial approvals. So that's the carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand, suspended solids, E. coli, and the pH. So all the testing that was performed in the first quarter was within the required ranges. The table at the bottom summarizes the averages for the first quarter with the maximum allowable in the title blocks. So our CBODs were at 4.7. We're allowed a maximum of 20 milligrams per liter. Our total suspended solids at 8.1. We're allowed a maximum of 20 milligrams per liter. And our E. coli of 1,000 counts per 100 mils, and we're down at 43. So well under the limits there. The lethality testing that we've talked about previously isn't due until November this year. The average monthly daily flows of wastewater, again, on the right-hand side of the chart there. So we can see that March in particular was a high precipitation month, and no surprise that our average daily flow was higher in that month. Our sewer breaks and repairs for the quarter, We did have a failure at the Brooks Street lift station. And that's the pump station that pumps wastewater from Newtown, Tannery Road, and the Victoria and Centennial area of town to the wastewater treatment plant. So there was a failure within the piping within the lift station that occurred around 6 o'clock on February 25th, 2024, and was repaired a couple of days later on February 27th. During that time, we did experience an overflow. So the overflow during that period is estimated at a little over 300,000 US gallons. This break at that time was reported to Environment Canada and NSECC as per our requirements. During this period, no other breaks were experienced. There's a summary of the overflows. It includes that item that we've just covered and several others that were due to storm water events where our system isn't separated. Are there any questions relating to this report?
Any questions? Thank you very much, Tyson. Thank you. So now we move on to 12, notice of motions, information requests, and council reports. This week I'll start at the right. So Councilor Bertels, anything?
No, but can I just make a statement? I just wanted to thank the Public Works for working around the clock lately, even like it's been midnight or early in the morning, as well as I wanted to thank everyone who's been working outside or in hot kitchens or having to shut down during this extreme heat wave, and just letting everybody know that we do appreciate everything they do for our town.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Nothing to report.
Councilor Mosier? Councilor Halverson?
I think you had a plan for motion that I'll let you go ahead with. It's all good. Oh, I was going to make, but you're going to make till. I know you mentioned you want to do it.
When you call me this after, you can do it if you want. You call me this afternoon. It's whatever, just to get it on the agenda. Doesn't matter to me who makes the notice of motion. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've had lots of discussion too already about Queen Street, the renaming of Cornwallis to Queen Street. At this point, that project's in limbo because we have approved it to rename Queen, but after hearing the feedback from the community that it was not acceptable to a large number of people, I believe that was one of the first things you said, Mayor, was when you want to have a little pause on it, but basically that's almost what we call a gentleman's agreement, that the sign's not going up. But at this point, council has approved it, so the issue still hasn't really been resolved. And I think that's something we need to bring forward again. So my notice of motion for the next meeting would be, and maybe I should look to the CAO or the clerk to get this right. I think we need, it's either a motion to reconsider the naming of the street to Queen, or a motion to rescind the name to Queen, and then we do another motion. So I don't know what's the correct procedure for that. I'll look to the clerk through the chair.
Kayla?
Yeah, so we could sorry, not to put the wrong language out there. There could be a motion to amend that motion that had been previously adopted by council, because we haven't actually acted on anything of the motion. But if you were to give your notice of motion right now, staff, we could finesse that a little bit and then ensure and work with you to make sure that the correct thing is captured for the next agenda.
Okay, yeah. So yes, I guess the motion is to reconsider the naming of Cornwallis to Queen at our next meeting. I would actually say too, this seems to me, this got quite heated. And I think now that we're talking about a committee of the whole, that seems like a really good forum to have a discussion about this amongst counselors and staff. And I really do feel like we could all benefit from having conversation around what we're trying to get out of this renaming. So I would look to see, maybe is it possible to get this item included on that meeting that we're planning on the committee of the whole.
Yeah, of course. So we will work with staff and the CAO to develop that committee of the whole and set that out like we would a normal agenda where it goes out about a week and ahead of time and put it on the website and advertise it just like a regular meeting. But again, no decisions will be requested of council during this committee of the whole format. It'll be purely an opportunity to hash out recommendations or fully flesh out some ideas that are being presented before they're being asked to make a decision.
So would the motion, again, through the chair, would the motion at that point be, I look to reconsider the renaming following a discussion at committee of the whole?
For this motion and for your intent, if I'm understanding it correctly, it could be that that council discuss the motion or the renaming of Cornwallis Street at the upcoming committee of the whole meeting.
Mhm.
And then from there, in the discussion process of committee of the whole, we might have a more defined action of what comes out of those discussions that would be then referred to the regular council meeting.
I think I'd rather do that because I do feel, again, this touched a nerve for a lot of people. And I think we need to have now that we've had some time to decompress from this and reflect, I think it's a good chance for all of us to get around the table and hash this through, in an environment that, there's no decisions being made until we actually, come to some kind of consensus. So yeah, I think I'd rather do that. We'll look at putting it to the committee of the whole first. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Halverson's made a notice of motion to move to Cornwallis Street renaming discussion to committee of the whole. So now we'll move on because we don't discuss that. I'd like to bring up a notice of motion. Pardon? Oh, you went, sorry. I forgot because I went to the TV and then forgot. Councillor Duncan.
Luckily for you, I have nothing. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
So he's looking at my big dumb head. I apologize, Melissa.
I was trying not to forget Councillor Halverson because she's on TV and I then forgot you. So I do have a notice of motion. I'd like to direct staff to prepare a report with recommendations on how they can revise the land use bylaws, Main Street form zone requirements with the aim of encouraging more varied development in this zone. And if you don't know where I'm talking about, it's Victoria Road. And the reason I'm bringing that forward is because some of the people that are on that street and wanted to do some developments recently have brought back things to me that I found hard to believe. And when talking to my colleagues, they did as well. So I just like council to come back with a report to make things easier in that section of town for development. Okay. And then there was just two other items I had written here. One I brought up earlier was the bandstand, that it's not forgotten. So people can be happy to know staff is working on that. And the other thing that was brought up approximately 2 months ago was the salary wage scale being published, and that staff is working on, and you'll see it published on the website very soon, a wage scale. So this council was very adamant when that first came out that we look into that. And we were looking into that since then to now, because it's just more to it than just putting a bunch of numbers on the computer. So it is going to happen very shortly. So again, that's all I have to say. Moving on, there's nothing under 13, and now I need a motion to move in camera. That council move in camera to discuss agenda item 14.1 contract negotiations per the MGA. Someone prepared to move that? Moved by Councillor Mosier. Seconded by Councillor Bertels. All those in favor? All those, okay, motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody.